I still don't know what slipping in the darkness has anything to do with anything, but at any rate, Mr. Nickel, Part 4.
Over the horizon came Jeremy, running as if the devil himself was on his tail. He didn't see the bullies, but he noticed blood on his shirt. Nickel closed his eyes. Nothing bound him to this boy, nothing at all, but he felt as if he were obligated somehow for his well-being. All he had to do is duck his head and never return. But he didn't. He got involved. "Kid, what the hell happened?" Nickel said, sliding down from the foliage. Jeremy was crying like a leaky faucet. "Mr. Nickel, I did it! I killed him!" said Jeremy. "You killed him? What the fuck, boy? You were supposed to scare the motherfucker!" Nickel meant to say more on the issue, but he heard an unholy electrical chatter in his head. The police bands were blowing up. Someone called the cops. The wretch saw the other boys running for the underpass, screaming for Jeremy's blood. "Hide behind one of the columns of the underpass, and don't come out until I tell you," said Nickel. "But he protested. "Now!" Nickel bellowed. Jeremy ran, more scared of Nickel than the boys chasing him. The bum knew that he should flee. He could get away clean if he wanted. The police were on their way. They'd asked for his license or social security number, and he wasn't going to be restrained ever again. It was a promise he made to himself long ago. One of the three boys fired a shot at the dirty blonde wretch. He could see the muzzle flash and the smoke from the pistol, but Nickel didn't even flinch. There was absolutely no reason to hide what he was this late in the game, and there was absolutely nothing he could say to these teens this time around that was going to back them down. Jeremy had brought a knife to a gunfight, and if they caught him, there was no way he'd get lucky twice. He may have to hit these boys off buttons, metaphorically speaking. Mr. Nickel met the teens head on. He didn't have a gun in his hand, but the kids seemed to take cover as if he did. "I'm not playing with you this time. You run along home, or you're really gonna get hurt." Gunshots drowned out the vagrant's words. More than half the shots missed, but three in particular sank into the wretch's chest. Nickel didn't even feel pain anymore. He was so detached from humanity that he didn't react with alarm to physical damage. For a moment, his inner flame flared and electricity surged through his body. The boys saw him for what he was, what they assumed he was, but was too asleep to see. Nickel's stitches were visible, and the metal on the side of his head where his eyes should have been. He was forged of the divine fire. He pushed the slug out of his chest like tensing a muscle. A trail of yellow bile served as his blood. The boy's gun clicked, but Mr. Nickel was upset now. He snatched the pistol from the boy's hand. With one clench of his fist, he reduced the pistol into an undefined hunk of metal. The boys ran, but Nickel snatched one of the children by the ear before they took off. The vagrant hoisted the teen over his head like a football and flung him into the other boys, who were at least 30 feet away by the time he got him into the air. Police sirens blared. They had more than likely saw him disciplining these kids, and he knew that he wasn't about to walk away from this unscathed. Nickel ran towards the police car that came storming at him with angry sirens. The officers inside were not yet callous enough to run the man down in cold blood, but that would be a mistake they would not duplicate. When the cop car slowed, Mr. Nickel got a firm two-handed grip on the front bumper and flung the vehicle up into the air like tossing a weightless pillow. The police cruiser flipped over twice before finally landing on his hood like a turtle, unable to right itself. Nickel saw 3 more carloads of policemen on their way, swarming him like locusts. They must have been already looking for Jeremy, which was his only explanation for the level of force. The created man knew, without a shadow of a doubt, he could survive this, but he wasn't so sure he could say the same about them. The next load of cops, seeing the carnage that this impossibly strong man wreaked, didn't stop the car to slow down. They barreled into the vagrant with no regard to his well-being. Nickel took the blow full force, flying backwards like a bullet from the impact. The cops all made a perimeter, drawing their weapons, taking defensive postures behind their doors. Nickel rose to his feet, smiling. His broken body easily healed from the damage that would have left a normal human a paraplegic. The cops took one look at Nickel's inner fire flare, and upon seeing his hideous true face, they opened fire. Nickel raised his fist high over his head as if calling to the gods for his powers, and he came down so tremendously strong, the force of the blow made an instantaneous crack in the ground akin to a seismic event. Cops tumbled to the ground, cars rolled over, and Nickel laughed so hard he almost forgot what he was doing. The monstrous man's mirth turned to bitterness when he saw Jeremy, not 30 paces behind him, watching the whole thing. "Boy, get the fuck back!" Nickel said, running to the unsure teen. Jeremy was frozen like a deer in the headlights. The cops all scrambled to right themselves. They picked themselves off the ground. The police wasted no time in opening fire. Whether they didn't see Jeremy or wanted Nickel dead more than they cared for Jeremy's life was unsure. The created monster clutched Jeremy in his arms like a father may protect his child. Bullets tore holes into his back, but he wouldn't let go, and in that moment he realized something. He realized that he had never cared for anyone more than he cared for himself. At this moment, he realized he was willing to die for this boy that he barely knew. Then the world made sense. Everything made sense. He knew what it meant to have a soul. He knew what it meant to care. He could finally stop running. His pilgrimage was over. Nickel fell over from the tremendous amount of bullets that riddled him. He smiled and noticed that the blood that leaked from his broken body was red. He looked up to the sky, and the dreary gray clouds that plastered the landscape backed away as if bowing in respect. The sun shone down on Mr. Nickel, and it was over. He was human. He finally understood. Nickel closed his eyes, knowing that this time he wouldn't come back. He felt nothing but content.
I just love me a story about monsters and mayhem, but also love and tenderness. Alright people, start tossing these bodies in. We ain't got time to wait. Okay, I remember Slipping in the Darkness by War. War, that was the name of the band. See, a good story can get you through pretty much anything in this life. Bodies in the ground, sun's up, candles out. I'm clocking out. Night, children.